Good afternoon, my friends. I want to give you a new course of action. If you've probably most people, not everybody, but most people who are watching right now have started rewiring their brains with a specific program of some kind. Whether it was Gupta, Primal Trust, DNRS, Regulate, Lightning Process, whatever it was. And I want to address something that comes up usually after 6 to 12 months of retraining. So this is for those a little farther along in their process, that when we start rewiring our brains, we are very neuroplastic, meaning our brain is very malleable. Think of very impressionable clay or sand. Like when you walk on a wet beach, the way your foot just sinks into the sand and there's a very clear imprint of it, right? That's how your brain is when you start this process. You're very neuroplastic and you have an authority, some program telling you these are the things you need to do in order to recover successfully. And as we progress in this process, that becomes less relevant, and you connecting to your own needs and your own inner signals and attuning to the needs of your brain and nervous system and parts becomes more relevant. But because we're so neuroplastic at the beginning, whatever program you took, and I know specifically DNRS is very legalistic, it is very rigid and dogmatic in the approach. And a lot of people I work with started there and have very strong patterns, and I did too, because that's where I started, of believing that they will not recover unless they do things according to that program, right? I think this can happen in any program. That's just the one that I see the most. And the way it's taught is very, very black and white, cut and dry, legalistic, dogmatic style. And the reality is that when we start this journey, that is actually really helpful because there's a lot of limbic activity. There's a lot of chaos. We're overrun by our trauma loops and have no clarity and no structure. And we need someone to say, do this, 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 and this, and you will recover. It gives us a structure to work within. It's very helpful at the beginning. As we progress in our recovery and our journey, after about generally 6 months, this can vary, 6 months, 3 months, a year, somewhere in the first year or so, but generally around 6 months, if you've been implementing that structure consistently, then you've created a level of calm and clarity in your mental function, because DNRS specifically, and a lot of brain wiring programs, are top down more so than top down and bottom up. And that's a lot of times where people need to start. That's fine. But what happens, there's a natural point in the journey where those things become a hindrance, actually. It become a residue that was imprinted in that very malleable brain state, that if I don't do exactly what this program says, I'm not going to recover, is often what the brain takes that as, and that's how it internalizes that information. And that is not true. So I want to give you an alternative or a way to understand this. Limbic impairment recovery, any kind of recovery, doesn't matter what you're recovering from, eating disorder, addiction, limbic recovery, you name it, is about learning how to attune to the genuine human needs of your brain, your nervous system, your inner child, your parts, and how to respond to them. Having the skills and tools to be able to meet those needs and create self-regulation and self-trust and a sense of safety within yourself. That's where it begins. But we start with this program that gives us a structure. It's great. And then at some point, you're going to outgrow that, and staying attuned to that structure is kind of like, if you stay in a place where you think that you need that, what that's like is more so, especially DNRS, especially, there's a sense of, okay, I just need to ignore everything my brain and body are telling me completely and just throw tools at myself all day. I need to elevate my mood. I need to create dose. I need to do this. I need to do that. It can apply to anything. I can do somatics, need to do rounds, need to elevate, need to whatever. There's this clinging and this detachment of, I must not hear what's going on at all costs. And that is, after that first 6 to 12 months, that's going to create a rift in your relationship with yourself that actually disables you from continuing to progress in your recovery. The ultimate goal of recovery and the tools that are given to you by any program to regulate your brain and nervous system is that you have this relationship with your brain and nervous system in parts like a parent does with a child. When babies are born, when humans are born, all of our signals are non-verbal. We cry, we squirm, we express distress in all these different ways. And some loving attentive, attuned caregiver comes and gives you what you need or makes their best guess, and they pat you on the back and they feed you and they make sure you're comfortable and warm enough and cool enough, and shush you and talk to you, and there's the warm skin and the heartbeat and the deep breath of a parent, all this regulating input. That's what regulation is often rhythm and warmth and regulation. And the purpose of your tools in this journey is to give you a way to signal safety when you're experiencing dysregulation or distress. And after that first 6 to 12 months, your job in this journey is to learn how to read the cues of your own dysregulation and respond to them, and learn which tools work for you, which approaches work. Does somatics work better? Does sensory things? Does auditory things? Does visualization? Does keeping yourself busy? Does being still? What works for you specifically? What do you need? What is your brain and nervous system signaling that you need when you're dysregulated? And it's this intimate personal relationship between you and your brain, nervous system, and parts, because you are unique. Your brain and your trauma and your patterns are completely, unrepeatably unique. And recovery depends upon you learning how to read the unmet needs behind the symptoms, the thoughts, the emotions, the dysregulation, and meet those needs that are driving the surface level symptomatic experiences. That is what generates recovery. That's what creates safety, is attunement and flexibility and the ability to understand what we need beyond that surface level. And that's what allows us to progress. And most programs will reach a point of limit where if we stay adhering to that program, we're going to be stuck in a place of limiting ourselves and saying, well, this means this, and this means this, and this means this, and not being open to a deeper, more complex personal approach of, well, for me, this means this, and that means that, not what the program said. That's really key for you to move forward. And there's a lot of what many people call rules or bullshit rules that are generated in that early time, necessarily for all of us, that it's safe to let go of as you progress. You do not need a certain amount of visualization or particular kind of practice every single day in order to progress, period, and especially after a certain point. What you need is to learn how to read your cues and learn which tools and which approaches of regulation work for you, so you can meet yourself where you are and help yourself to feel safe and connected and loved where you are in your own unique process. That's the whole point. Love you guys.